Thank you for your interest in using standards of learning assessment data to inform instruction in mathematics. This video has been developed to help teachers analyze and use state assessment data when planning for mathematics instruction. After this video, you should be able to answer these questions. How can we use the data from last year's Standards of Learning Assessment to plan for this year's instruction? What is a process for analyzing the information on the student detail by question report? What other resources can be used to inform planning for mathematics instruction? For this presentation, our focus will be on how to use the most current, comprehensive data aligned to the standards of learning and available to teachers before the school year even begins. Data from the Spring 2022 SOL Test Administration. These three bullets provide guidance for analyzing the data from Spring SOL tests, the Student Detail by Question, or SDBQ report item level data, and determining which instructional concepts or skills to focus on with students. Being aware of the prerequisite skills and knowledge from the previous grade level is very important. Information in the Bridging for Math Strength documents assists with this awareness. We are going to share strategies for using the SDBQ report and other data sources to help identify and address learning gaps and provide scaffolding for on-grade level instruction as students work toward grade level proficiency. Many mathematics teachers have a goal of providing daily opportunities for application through problem solving and intentionally begin with numbers in those problem situations with which students have prior experience, providing an opportunity to build on that prior knowledge. This will serve as our context for the mathematics example in using SDBQ data from the Spring 2022 SOL test. Teachers in grade 5 will build on students' prior experience with whole numbers as a bridge to expand problem solving and computation skills with fractions and mixed numbers, and when introducing new concepts and skills. The mathematics bridging standards are a time-saving resource first shared in the 2021-2022 school year that can be helpful for intentional instructional planning. This image provides a snippet from the grade 5 mathematics bridging standards, and the web page where these documents are posted is listed for you and linked on the next slide. The SOL for grade 5 are in the center column, with the prerequisite SOL from 2 previous grade levels provided in the columns to the left of the on-grade level standard. To the right, you will find possible connections within the grade level. Incorporating these connections into instructional design can promote deeper understanding, and connections to future grade level SOL are provided in the last column to the right. We want to note that teachers can use SDBQ data to assist in addressing potential learning gaps, and they may have more experience with using SDBQ data with this purpose. But teachers can also use the connections to future learning in the bridging standards for students who have demonstrated strengths in certain mathematics skills and concepts in order to meet their individual needs. In this image taken from the table shown on the previous slide, we can see the bridging standards that provide the foundation for success for SOL 5.4, the prior learning that is needed for success with the content and skills associated with SOL 5.4. This includes bullets A through D for SOL 4.4. Note that teachers can use the links in this document to open the just-in-time mathematics quick check that has been developed for that particular SOL bullet. So using this document itself saves time when planning instruction. We will keep these connections across grade levels in mind as we consider SDBQ data for a hypothetical grade 5 student. When analyzing and using SDBQ reports, we're thinking we have the SOL test data from last spring, so what's next? As a teacher, you may have experience using SDBQ data to identify areas for remediation with individual students in preparation for an expedited retake of an SOL test. For our purposes, we are talking about using these data to set the stage and prepare for units of instruction you have not yet taught, rather than using these data to provide remediation for instruction that has already occurred. Here we see SOL 5.4 from the current year's standards, which sets forth the expectations for solving practical problems that involve whole numbers using all 4 operations. We recognize that teachers have very limited planning time, regardless of the time of year. So starting with data available to teachers before the start of the school year makes sense. A close look at one student's grade 4 mathematics CAT SDBQ report provides information on the student's success with items that measured prerequisite content and skills in the grade 4 mathematics standards of learning that were taught during the 2021-2022 school year. The data related to the SOL taught last year from the spring 2022 SOL tests may be especially useful when planning to build on students' prior experiences and strengths. As well, to meet the requirements of the 2021 legislation, the computer adaptive test algorithm has been configured to allow for off-grade level items to be delivered to students beginning with the fall 2022 growth assessments. Information on these off-grade items will be included in the SDBQ reports to come. So familiarity with how standards progress across the grade levels becomes increasingly important to teachers. Here we see the SOL for the prerequisite grade 4 standard of learning for operating with whole numbers and for practical problem solving. When looking at SDBQ reports from spring 2022, the teachers in our scenario will want to look for information on how students performed on test items aligned to this standard. The first 2 bullets for that grade 4 standard are shown on this slide. The grade 4 standard continues here. This image shows the SDBQ report for the grade 4 mathematics SOL test completed in spring 2022 by our hypothetical rising 5th grade student. A closer look at this student's SDBQ report from last spring's grade 4 mathematics SOL test indicates that the student's performance level falls in the fail basic range with a test scaled score of 396. Next, let's examine performance information for the first 2 reporting categories more closely, with a focus on SOL 4.4 A through D, which are identified as prerequisites for the on-grade level content in SOL 5.4 in the Mathematics Bridging Standards document we referenced earlier. When looking at the SOL test data, remember that this SOL test was administered after the student received instruction in the grade 4 mathematics content. Also, this report provides information on the student's achievement in content and skills that are prerequisites for the content that will be part of instruction in grade 5. Teachers are encouraged to look at this report through that prerequisite lens, not only at the beginning of the school year, but perhaps again when planning each instructional unit. As a side note, teachers may not yet have had the opportunity to closely compare the test blueprints for the growth assessments and the SOL tests. But teachers may be aware that the fall and winter growth assessments are shorter tests with fewer items than an SOL test. Because of this, the SOL test SDBQ report will always provide more information about student achievement on a greater variety of standards than the growth assessment SDBQ report can provide. The student's performance on the items that measured SOL 4.4 on this assessment indicates that this student would benefit from additional experiences with content. If we look closely at the pieces in the table that have been highlighted. As a mathematics teacher, I might also want to consider that this student correctly answered practical problems involving addition and subtraction of decimals. So this indicates some understanding of which operation should be used to solve a practical addition or subtraction situation. Also, the student correctly solved addition or subtraction problems with fractions, assessed without a calculator, which indicates that the student has some computation skills. However, there is limited information on these prerequisites to SOL 5.4, so for this student, I will want to consider additional data that I might have available or might need to collect. I know I can look back at the fall 2021 growth assessment results, but it might be more important and timely to collect more current information on my students' understanding. We want to think about the item descriptors provided in the SDBQ report. The item descriptors do not indicate the format of a test item. as in whether it is multiple choice or technology enhanced item. Unlike released test items, item descriptors are not taken out of circulation once the item to which they are assigned has been released. Item descriptors may not describe everything a student must understand and be able to do. They do give you the gist of a skill or a concept that an item assesses, like a quick sketch would give. But item descriptors don't give you all of the details, like a full color portrait would provide. For example, one item descriptor in mathematics is solve problems involving estimation, addition, or subtraction of whole numbers. The word "or" tells us that either the student had to add or subtract, but not both. This is because these computational skills are inverses of one another, and it is important that students understand and can use the relationship. Again, item descriptors may not describe everything a student must understand and be able to do. It is essential to review the SOL the item measures along with related standards to provide a comprehensive approach to instruction. Other assessment data, formative and summative, should also be used to gauge students' proficiency with content. So far, I have determined that my students' performance on prerequisite skills from SOL 4.4 was inconsistent, but that determination is based on very limited data. The item descriptors provide some information about the skills and content my student was asked to demonstrate, but I do not have specific information about the questions that were posed or the answers that were selected. It would be useful to have additional data that I know are aligned to the Virginia Standards of Learning. The just-in-time mathematics quick checks are an efficient resource for meeting the goals described on this slide. Using the spring SOL test data, I know which quick checks might be useful to re-engage my student in the prerequisite knowledge I want to investigate more fully while keeping the focus on our current grade level standards and working toward grade level proficiency. I can use specific quick checks or select individual questions from certain quick checks aligned to the SOL for grade 5, grade 4, or even grade 3 to collect additional information that will help me plan just-in-time instruction to meet individual student needs. It is important to note that we are not proposing that teachers administer the quick checks at the beginning of the year, but rather through the course of the year as the related instruction for the current grade level is being planned and delivered. Quick checks can be incorporated into grade level instruction activities to provide additional performance data. These are not assessments that require everything to stop in order to assess. This is an image of the just-in-time mathematics quick check for SOL 4.4D, the first page, which includes several questions designed for use as formative assessment for that grade level content. This snippet is included to illustrate that the quick checks also call out connected or supporting SOL within the grade level, as well as prerequisite SOL from the previous 2 grade levels. We will touch on key components of the quick checks as we navigate through the next couple of slides. Each just-in-time mathematics quick check includes the same components tailored to that specific SOL bullet. A just-in-time mathematics quick check that includes several formative assessment questions has been developed for every single mathematics SOL bullet from kindergarten through Algebra 2. Quick checks are not intended to mimic SOL test questions, and most include several questions that have each been designed to uncover the most common misconceptions students may have with the content. This example, question number 5 from the quick check for SOL 4.4D, requires students to deal with the remainder in a practical division situation. We want to notice also that remainder is not used in this open-ended question. This image of the teacher notes provided in the quick check corresponds to the question shown on the preceding slide. Teacher notes are provided for each question. They generally begin with an explanation of the common errors or misconceptions a teacher should expect to encounter, followed by suggestions for instruction or additional learning experiences that may assist in constructing understanding. Teachers who have used quick checks have indicated that the teacher notes provide important reminders when planning for instruction and help them plan intentionally opportunities through which the most common misconceptions can be uncovered and experiences that will cause students to reconsider and refine their thinking. Consider the scenario provided on this slide and the next, and think about which approach best ensures a focus on grade level content while also providing support where prerequisite understanding may not yet be solidified. 2 teachers each are nearing a unit on the instruction in SOL 5.4, the standard for our scenario, and each of these teachers understands the importance of the prerequisite skills from SOL 4.4A through D. Our first teacher, Mr. Smith, spends one class period reviewing SOL 4.4A through D with all of his students, and then will be ready to teach SOL 5.4. Mrs. Rodriguez will use SOL assessment data to identify students who may have gaps in learning for SOL 4.4A through D. She uses 15 minutes during a small group rotation to implement a quick check of content from SOL 4.4C and 4.4D, while also introducing problems aligned to SOL 5.4. We would suggest that Mrs. Rodriguez's approach maximizes the instructional time for the current grade level content. Analyzing the results of SDBQ reports from the spring SOL test to identify those students who may need additional supports, and then following up with the associated just-in-time mathematics quick check to gather additional current information will assist this teacher in targeting these prerequisite skills efficiently. Teachers who used the just-in-time mathematics quick checks with students during the 2020-2021 school year reported that the strategies to uncover and address the most common misconceptions students display while learning the content were among the most useful pieces of this resource. This may be a particularly relevant resource if you are a new teacher or a teacher who is new to a grade level or course, if you are a special education teacher without a content background in mathematics, or if you are unfamiliar with the skills and content taught in the previous grade level. For our scenario and hypothetical student, information from the just-in-time mathematics quick checks for SOL 4.4D could be gathered during small group or individualized warm-up activities as formative assessment. The information in the teacher's notes will help you identify common errors for all students, so you can be ready to respond with a different instructional approach to build student understanding. Teachers are encouraged to use the recordings and resources from the Virginia Department of Education Mathematics Department's webinar series for teachers, which was titled Addressing Unfinished Learning in the Mathematics Classroom, Building Bridges for Student Success, to support effective instruction and assist in building bridges for student success using resources aligned to the 2016 Mathematics Standards of Learning. While these resources were developed to support the return to learning in the 2021-2022 school year, the emphasis on the use of formative assessment to identify student strengths and learning gaps to ensure grade level content is the target of instruction continue to be relevant. The mathematics tracking logs were developed for use in the 2021-2022 school year, but these Microsoft Word documents can easily be edited to reflect information for the 2022-2023 school year. The webinar series mentioned on the previous slide included 4 separate components, each for different levels of teachers, elementary and secondary. Please check out these resources. It is important that the SDBQ data from the spring SOL test or from the growth assessments are not used in isolation. Teachers are encouraged to use the mathematics bridging documents along with other formative and summative assessment data when planning instruction. As mentioned previously, targeting on grade level instruction while folding in prerequisite skills and content is essential. Consider these questions. What data will provide additional information? What evidence will you look for that will show you students have learned prerequisite skills and content? If the evidence shows students are approaching proficiency, but not yet there, how can you scaffold current grade level instruction? The Virginia Department of Education has partnered with George Mason University and a cadre of Virginia teachers and mathematics specialists to develop the Bridging for Math Strength resources, linked here for you. At this website, teachers can access formative assessment tools and modules to support mathematics instruction. These tools have been designed to help teachers identify what students do know and understand, and next steps for instruction that will build on those strengths. The site includes routines, tasks, and games that can be used in a variety of ways to support mathematics learning. This is also a very parent-friendly site. We strongly encourage teachers and mathematics leaders to become familiar with these resources. These modules would provide excellent support for new teachers, teachers who are new to a grade level, teachers who are mentoring other teachers, Teachers who are looking for examples of valid formative assessments to incorporate into their daily instruction. And they could help administrators without a mathematics background have a clearer vision of what they should be looking for when they enter a mathematics classroom. Our final thoughts: it's important to use SOL test data, not only to identify, but also to help address potential learning gaps when planning and implementing on grade level instruction. Consider what the data shows about what students already know that connects to the current grade level skills and content, and think about what other data should be consulted. We want to consider how can on grade level instruction be differentiated to meet individual student needs. We also want to consider how we could use flexible grouping to differentiate instruction efficiently and effectively for students. Data provided in SDBQ reports needs to be analyzed and used for all students to determine if supports may be needed when learning new grade level content. Even students whose scores fell into the proficient range on spring 2022 SOL tests may need additional support or scaffolding for some specific skills and new grade level content. Start with student strengths and assets to build a solid foundation. Thank you for your interest in this presentation. Please use the contact information provided if you have questions about the standards of learning assessments or about the mathematics standards of learning.